No parent understands the power of questions quite like the parent of a toddler. You might say to your toddler something that seems simple like, "Okay, honey, it's time for lunch," and get that 3-letter word in response from your adorable 3-year-old. Why? Well, it's because our tummies are empty and it's time to eat something. But why? Let's just sit here at the table. Here's your sandwich. Why? Toddlers are the kings and queens of asking questions. But if we're not careful, things can change when our kids get older. There's a period of time when they shy away from asking questions. They don't approach life with the same level of curiosity as a small child. They move from curiosity to indifference. In parenthood, if you are currently living with toddlers, it is easy to get tired of the why phase. It's easy to move to "because I said so" in a flash. Believe me, I have been there. But as we look at the ways our faith informs and influences our parenting, I think curiosity is one of the most powerful moments that we have to pay attention to. Here is a picture of our youngest son, Yoren, who was about 3 years old at the time this picture was taken. We were on vacation on the North Shore of Minnesota, and we were at one of the state parks walking along the state park path, and I vividly remember that he would stop nearly every other step to get down and look at the bugs. The bugs! Every single one of those bugs, it seemed. And I'm sure he was in that toddler phase of saying, "Mama, what's that?" And for me, not really knowing all the time what he'd be asking about, I'm sure I would say, "It's some sort of bug. What do you notice about it?" You can remember those parenting moments, I'm sure, answering a question with a question. And those 3-year-olds, they take us so literally, don't they? We sometimes see our question response to their question as a way to divert their attention. And sometimes it's at those very moments that they pause, scrunch up their eyebrows, turn their heads to one side, and honestly ponder what we have just asked them to notice. Jesus is perhaps the most famous of them all in responding to questions with questions. In the book of Matthew, some Pharisees start to question the ways that Jesus and his followers aren't bound by the typical rituals or traditions. They ask, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Jesus replied, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition?" When Jesus and his disciples encountered a storm on a boat in the book of Mark, we read, Jesus was in the stern sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And in one of the most famous stories from Luke, the one that we call the Good Samaritan, we read that Jesus, on one occasion, an expert of the law, stood up to test him. "Jesus," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" Jesus replied. "How do you read it?" Jesus himself didn't scrutinize curiosity. He inspired it. So parents, what would it look like for you to choose curiosity over indifference? None of us are perfect at this. We've all taken questions from our kids and shut them down. I promise you, I am no exception to that. But what could it mean for us to remember that curiosity is truly a gift? To pause the next time our teenager or child says something that catches us off guard or confuses us, and then to boldly scrunch up our eyebrows, turn our heads to the side, and to say, "Tell me more." To be prepared to remain curious at whatever phase in the journey we happen to be on.